Look, when you're in a street fight, right, you don't stand there and calculate the theoretical trajectory of a punch coming at your head.
No, of course not. You'd get knocked out.
Exactly. You don't stand there thinking about the arc of a fist. You feel the kinetic pressure. I mean, you feel the bone, the weight, the mass driving through your guard, and you react to the absolute physical reality of that pressure.
Yeah, the literal force of it.
Right. But academics, these soft, tenured cowards hiding in their sterile laboratories, they are getting punched in the fucking face by dark matter and vacuum energy every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
And what are they doing? They're standing there bleeding from the nose, still trying to map the trajectory of the punch on a dusty chalkboard.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
Today we fight back.
We absolutely do. Because, what if I told you that 88% of the universe isn't actually made up of this magical, invisible dark matter that physicists keep crying about?
Right.
What if I told you that you are just physically blind to it because you are living inside a 9.6-dimensional high-pressure ocean?
Hell yes. I mean, welcome to a completely unhinged, utterly ruthless deep dive.
Yeah.
We are taking the sanitized, safe, mathematically elegant textbooks, and we are tossing them right out the fucking window.
Good riddance.
Because today, we were looking at an explosive stack of sources from an independent researcher. And this guy isn't your typical soft-handed professor.
No, definitely not.
He is a 37-year-old Austrian-born butcher, self-defense instructor, and bike mechanic living down in Australia.
A real guy with real dirt on his hands.
Exactly. I have a stack of his notes sitting right in front of me. And I'm not kidding. Some of these pages literally have what looks like bike grease and bloodstains on them.
Is amazing.
And let me tell you, we are channeling this guy's energy completely today.
Oh, we are ripping the absolute piss out of mainstream physics. I mean, this isn't about string theories that only work in some pristine, imaginary math land where everything is perfectly symmetrical.
Right, where you have to invent extra dimensions just to make the math look pretty.
Yeah. This is about blood, grease, and the physical thermodynamic pressure of reality. Our mission today is to completely dismantle standard 3D and 4D physics.
Tear it down to the studs.
Exactly. We are going to expose the multi-billion-dollar academic wild goose chase for this mythical graviton particle.
Oh, don't even get me started on the gravity.
I know. And we are going to prove, using ruthless math and tangible physical reality, that the universe is actually a high-pressure, 9.6-dimensional liquid vacuum.
I love it. So let's just get straight into it. I want to start by shredding the most fundamental lie of their entire mathematical system.
Let's do it, the zero.
Yes. I'm looking at the first page of these grease-stained notes, and the very first thing he attacks is the concept of zero. Standard physics, standard math, it treats zero as an absolute void.
Right, like a perfect vacuum.
Yeah.
Absolute nothingness.
But looking at these notes, he says this is mathematical bullshit.
Because it is.
He claims that zero actually has a weight. It has what he calls a phase conjugate resonance.
Yeah, that's a crucial term right there.
And he's written down this baseline equation, heavily underlined in red ink.
Yeah.
It says zero does not strictly approximate 0.1111 repeating.
The ones just keep going.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to need some help here, man. How can nothing equal something? Like, how does zero actually have a physical weight?
Look, to understand this, you have to completely break your brain out of the flat Euclidean math you learned in grade school.
Okay.
Think about what we'll call the beer glass universe.
The beer glass universe. I like that already.
Right. When an academic looks at so-called empty space, they see an empty glass. They see a flat zero. Nothing there.
Yeah.
But we are just the froth and the bubbles at the top of the glass. The vacuum of space itself is the liquid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when mainstream physicists look at empty space, they're completely missing the underlying vibration. They miss the fluid medium that makes the bubbles possible in the first place.
So wait, they're looking at a giant glass of beer, ignoring the beer entirely, and just sitting there measuring the foam.
Precisely. They're obsessed with the foam. But the math in these sources proves that if you give zero a placeholder value of 0.111 repeating...
Wait, where does that number even come from?
It isn't just a random number. It's derived from psi, which is the universe's fundamental harmonic sound.
Okay, the literal vibration of the vacuum.
Exactly. So if you plug that repeating decimal into the equations of existence instead of a flat zero, suddenly all the massive glaring errors in standard physics just balance out.
Because you're finally accounting for the beer.
Right. Zero is not empty space. Zero is a heavy, viscous liquid just waiting to be agitated.
Let me bring this into the shop, because reading this guy's notes, the butcher analogies just, they make it click for me instantly.
Oh, they're brilliant. Go for it.
When I'm working,
Yeah.
right? And I wipe down my heavy-duty stainless steel meat scale at the end of the day, the digital readout flashes 0.
Right. 0.00.
Exactly. The scale says 0, but is there actually nothing there? Bullshit.
Of course not.
There is 14 pounds per square inch of atmospheric pressure pushing down on that metal plate at all times. There is the microscopic density of the metal itself. There is the leftover, microscopic Wagyu fat grease smeared across the surface that I couldn't completely wipe off.
Yeah, the residue.
Academics look at the digital readout and say, look, it's a 0. There's absolutely nothing there. But I look at it as a butcher and say, that 0 is just the baseline pressure of the universe.
You're exactly right.
You have to give 0 a weight, or your entire mathematical foundation is just built on a lie.
It's exactly the same mechanism when you're fixing a bike.
Yeah.
The sources bring up the smartphone gyroscope sensor, which I think is just a brilliant real-world example.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
So if you take your phone and lay it perfectly still, just resting flat on your workbench, you'd think it's at 0, right? No movement.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
But if you plug into the raw data coming off that gyro, it is constantly micro-adjusting. It is catching the ones and zeros of cosmic pressure.
Wait, really? Even just sitting on the table?
Even sitting completely still. It's reading the baseline push of the liquid universe. It never stops moving because the universe never stops pushing.
Damn.
There is simply no such thing as a true, dead, flat 0.
Okay, hold on, though. I have to push back here, because if I'm playing devil's advocate for the listener,
Sure.
if 0 actually have a physical weight, if the vacuum of space is constantly putting out this baseline pressure of 0.1 repeating, why doesn't standard math just blow up in their faces?
What do you mean?
I mean, every single time they try to build a bridge or launch a satellite. If their math is fundamentally wrong at the very level of 0, how does anything actually work?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer is the observer effect, combined with just a staggering amount of human arrogance.
Okay, arrogance, I believe.
We aggressively round down. Let me explain the mechanism here. If an academic gets a complex measurement in a particle collider, say something like 0.1152,
Right.
they don't know what to do with the decimals that don't fit their pre-approved model, so they aggressively round it down to 0.
Just to make it fit.
Just to make their pathetic, flat Euclidean math look clean on a whiteboard.
You've got to be kidding me. They're just sweeping the decimal points under the rug.
Literally sweeping it under the rug. They use mathematical normalization techniques to essentially wipe away the infinities and the friction of reality.
Wow.
They are constantly artificially rounding down the exact harmonic frequencies that make up the thick fabric of the cosmos.
So why don't the bridges fall down?
Because when you build a bridge, you're dealing with macroscopic Newtonian physics. Rounding down that tiny microscopic fraction doesn't immediately collapse a steel bridge.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But when you try to measure the mass of a galaxy or the behavior of a quantum particle, that rounded down error compounds into an absolute catastrophe.
Right. And then they have to invent fake math to cover it up. It's cowardice.
Total cowardice.
They want neat little boxes because physical reality is just too messy for them.
Yeah.
But look, to truly understand why 0 has this weight, we have to stop looking at flat, two-dimensional numbers. We have to start looking at how the meat of the universe is physically cut and stitched together.
Oh, this is the best part.
I'm looking at the next section of these notes, and the header just says in huge letters, the primal cuts of space-time.
Such a great title.
And this is where it gets wild. She says, we are not living in a 3D flatland.
No, we are not.
And we sure as hell aren't living in the neat, perfectly symmetrical 10-dimensional or 14-dimensional manifolds proposed by string theorists like Eric Weinstein.
Yeah, all that elegant, smooth math. It's a fantasy.
This guy claims the universe operates in a fractional Hausdorff dimension, exactly 9.6 dimensions.
Yeah.
First of all, translate that for me. What the fuck is a fractional Hausdorff dimension? How could you have a fraction of a dimension?
I know. It sounds like a complete oxymoron until you understand the physical mechanism of how space folds.
Okay, break it down.
A fractional Hausdorff dimension is basically a way to measure roughness. It measures how completely a fractal shape fills up space.
Right.
Think about a piece of crumpled paper. A perfectly flat piece of paper is a 2D object, obviously.
Yeah, length and width.
But if you crush it into a tight, dense ball, It takes up 3D space, even though its surface area is still technically 2D.
Okay, I'm with you.
So its Hausdorff dimension is somewhere between 2 and 3. Now scale that concept up to the entire universe.
What exactly 9.6 dimensions, though?
Because of a mechanism called seam contraction. When higher dimensions stitch together what the academics call fiber bundles and manifolds, they don't stack perfectly like smooth Lego bricks.
Because they aren't flat.
Exactly. They overlap, they share information, they physically compress under the immense liquid pressure of the universe. Wow.
The formula in the notes is D equals 9.6 plus or minus 0.01. The universe compresses its dimensions down, and you get this shifting, overlapping reality.
Let me go back to the butcher's display case for a second, because he draws this out beautifully in the margins here.
Yeah, explain that one. It's so good.
Listen to me. If I take an entire massive beast, let's say a huge steer, right, and I break it down into 4 quarters and yield 18 primal cuts of steak.
Right.
I cannot just lay those 18 steaks perfectly flat, side by side on the metal tray. If I try to put them in the display case, I have to squish them together.
Yeah, you have to pack them in.
They overlap at the seams. 18 distinct three-dimensional steaks might only take up the visual footprint of 15 steaks because of the overlapping fat, the connective tissue, the way the meat compresses against the glass.
Yeah.
Space-time does the exact same fucking thing. The dimensions are crammed into the cosmic display case, overlapping at the seams. That is a perfect physical analogy. And mathematically, because they overlap, you get a dimensional reduction. You get 9.6.
So what about that fluctuating plus or minus 0.01 in the equation? Because that isn't a rounding error, is it?
No, not at all. That is the Wagyu fat physically melting into the pan. It's what physicists call Hawking radiation or Hawking friction. It's the thermal exhaust of a living, breathing, high-friction cosmos constantly rubbing against its own overlapping seams.
And he mentioned this leftover 0.4 gap. I mean, if we have 9.6 dimensions, we are obviously short of a perfect 10. What is that 0.4?
That 0.4 is literally the most important part of the entire model.
Really?
Yes. That 0.4 is the exit path. It's the reciprocal flow, which is mathematically represented as 1 over phi, 1 over the golden ratio.
Okay, 1 over phi.
It is the literal physical space where the universe's natural curve hides. It's the exhaust vent that keeps the whole high-pressure system from just exploding under its own weight.
It is the connective tissue between the primal cuts.
Exactly. It's the grease between the gears.
So if space is this curved, thick, overlapping piece of meat, squished into 9.6 dimensions, when some tenured professor at a prestigious university uses a straight ruler or a perfectly straight laser beam to measure the cosmos, what are they actually doing?
Oh, it's absurd. They're measuring a highly curved, overlapping piece of meat with a straight, rigid tape measure.
They're missing the curve.
They are entirely missing the bulge of the curve. They measure point A to point B linearly, assuming space is perfectly flat.
Idiots.
They completely ignore the thick, overlapping connective tissue of the 9.6 dimensions. They miss the 0.4 gap, the exhaust vent, completely.
Right.
And then they scratch their heads and wonder why their calculations for the mass of the universe are fundamentally broken.
It drives me insane.
Yeah.
They're literally measuring the flat shadow of a crumpled ball of paper.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So if space is curved, thick, overlapping, and just dripping with friction, how the hell do we actually map it without using their broken standard geometry?
Well, we have to borrow their tools, but use them correctly.
Right. I'm looking at the notes here, and he says we need the language of the physicist, but we need to apply it with the absolute ruthlessness of a butcher.
Yes.
We have to map the grain of the meat. And to do that, he introduces this terrifying-looking symbol, the metric tensor.
Ah, the metric tensor.
It's written as a little g, subscript mu and nu. Break this down for me, man. What even is a tensor?
Okay, so a tensor is just a mathematical tool used to describe how things stretch, twist, and curve in multiple directions all at once.
Okay.
To survive in this 9.6-dimensional liquid vacuum, you cannot use flat high school algebra. You just can't. You must use the metric tensor, g mu nu.
Right.
This is a symmetric square matrix. It's basically a map of coordinates, time, radius, theta, and phi. Let's get ruthless with the math here because the mechanism is just gorgeous.
Let's hear it.
The line element equation is ds squared equals g mu nu, dx nu.
Whoa, okay, slow down. ds squared equals g mu nu, dx mu, dx nu. What does that actually mean for the guy on the street?
It means we are calculating the exact physical distance between 2 points in a space that is actively curving and flowing.
Like trying to measure distance inside a moving river.
Exactly. This
Oh.
isn't just arbitrary numbers scrawled on a board to impress grad students. This tensor dictates the exact geometry, the physical curvature, and the flow of the high viscosity superfluid vacuum.
Which we call eta, right?
Right, denoted as eta. If you don't use the metric tensor to map that shifting plus or minus 0.01 curvature, if you just assume space is flat, your whole understanding of the cosmos shatters.
Let me bring it right back to the chopping block.
Do it.
If you take a beautiful, expensive, grade A piece of Wagyu beef, right, and you just hack into it blindly, slicing with the grain of the muscle fibers, what happens?
You ruin the meat.
It's tough as old boots.
Yeah.
It's entirely unchewable. You are fighting the natural structure of the meat.
Right.
To cut it properly, you have to look at the lines, you have to map the structure visually, and you slice against the grain.
Yes.
The metric tensor is the mathematical map of the universe's grain.
It absolutely is.
It's a covariance matrix of normal sensor behavior.
Yeah.
You use the tensor to map the grain of spacetime, to find that connective tissue.
Yeah.
When you map the grain perfectly, that is how you spot the anomaly. That is how your knife just glides through the meat without resistance.
I love that. Or think about truing a bicycle wheel. You're the mechanic.
Oh yeah, I do this all the time.
If a wheel is wobbling, you don't just stare at the rubber tire and guess why it's bent. You map the tension of every single metal spoke pulling against the central hub.
Right, you pluck them, you feel the tension.
Exactly. One spoke pulls left, the other pulls right, balancing the rim. That complex, interconnected tension network of spokes, that is exactly what Jamunu does for space-time.
It maps the structural integrity of the cosmic curve.
Yes.
I love that. So break down the matrix table for the listener. I'm looking at this grid in his notes. When we're standing in the bike shop, our hands are covered in grease, and we're staring at this tensor. What do these variables, G00 all the way down to G3, actually represent physically?
Okay, so picture a 4x4 grid. Rows and columns.
Got it.
Row 0, column 0, that's G00, represents the tension of time itself.
The tension of time. That's heavy.
Right. Then G11 represents the radius, the physical distance stretching outward.
Okay.
Then G2 and G33 represent your angles, theta and phi. That's the curvature around the sphere.
Makes sense.
And because it's a symmetric matrix, the tension pulling from one angle perfectly mirrors the tension pulling from the opposite angle. But the real magic happens when you use orthogonal coordinate systems.
Orthogonal meaning what exactly?
Meaning your axes meet at perfect 90-degree right angles.
Okay.
When you align your map perfectly like that, all the chaotic off-diagonal entries in that grid, the messy overlapping poles, they become mathematically zero.
They just cancel each other out.
Exactly. You strip away the noise and you isolate the pure, raw pressure points of the universe's grain.
You find exactly where the fat meets the muscle.
Yes.
Beautiful. So we map the tension, we slice against the grain.
Right.
Now that we have the map, the metric tensor, and we know the meat, the 9.6 overlapping dimensions, it's time to talk about the physical force that grinds this whole bloody system together.
Oh, man. This is where it gets heavy.
Because this is where the notes get incredibly aggressive. He completely tears apart our concept of gravity. He calls it the omni-push.
Because Newton's idea of gravity as a pull is dead. It belongs in a museum.
Fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale for children that we only still teach because it's easy to draw on a chalkboard with an apple.
Right.
Gravity is not a magical, invisible string pulling an apple down to the earth from a tree. Gravity is an emergent thermodynamic pressure of the quantum vacuum.
An omni-push.
Yes. It is the liquid universe pushing in on you from every possible side.
I am looking at this equation in the notes, and it's circled about 50 times. I'm going to read it straight from the page. It says, integral cross G equals P total.
Right, the baseline push.
But then underneath it, he has expanded it into this absolute monster of a formula. Let me read it. P total equals 1 over phi, closed loop integral of phi, times eta over r to the power of 9.6 plus or minus epsilon, times ci delta v, plus or minus 1 over phi to the power of d.
That is the one.
Looking at this makes my eyes cross me. We need to break this down piece by piece, like breaking down a carcass on the table.
Let's carve it up, because this is the exact point where mainstream academics just tap out and run back to their safe, flat math.
Cowards. All right, what's the first piece of the meat?
First piece. 1 over phi, closed loop integral of phi. This is the golden circuit.
Okay.
The integral sign with the circle through it means it's a closed-loop integral. It's mathematically following the path of least resistance, scaling perfectly to the golden ratio, phi.
So this is the energy of the universe just winding and compressing endlessly, never losing its ratio.
Exactly. It's a perfect feedback loop.
Okay, next variable. We have eta, the Greek letter eta.
Right. Eta represents vacuum viscosity. Remember the beer glass?
Yeah, the liquid, not the void.
The universe isn't empty space. It is a solid, thick, high-pressure liquid vacuum. Eta is the literal physical density of that vacuum.
So it's the thickness.
It is the thickness of the liquid that all energy has to physically tunnel through to move from point A to point B.
Right, the Wagyu fat.
Okay.
Okay, then we divide that by r to the power of 9.6.
Exactly. Dimensional scaling. This corrects the massive off-by-a-degree error in standard physics.
How so?
We aren't squaring the radius like in Newton's elementary inverse square law. We are scaling the physical distance to the actual 9.6 dimensions of the overlapping meat we just mapped.
Damn, that makes so much more sense. Okay, next is psi. We mentioned this earlier.
The quantum spine, the fundamental vibrational harmonic frequency.
The sound of the universe.
Right, it is the sound of the universe's pressure. This specific vibration is what allows energy to phase shift and physically tunnel through the thick viscosity of the vacuum.
Okay, and finally multiplied by delta V.
The singularity sink.
The sink.
The vortex. The drain hole at the center of mass that just sucks all this liquid pressure into a single, highly compressed point.
Okay, I have a physical mechanism for this. Let me know if this tracks.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Think of a heavy-duty commercial industrial meat mincer.
Okay.
When I drop a huge 5-pound chunk of tough chuck roast into the top hopper, the meat doesn't magically pull itself through the blades.
No, it doesn't.
Gravity isn't pulling it. The massive metal auger inside is spinning, and it is physically pushing the meat from every conceivable angle, compressing it, forcing it relentlessly through the tiny holes of the extrusion plate.
Yes, that is gravity.
It's the relentless inward pressure of the 9.6-dimensional fluid vacuum forcing matter into a sink. It's a push, not a pull.
That is exactly what is happening. The fluid of space is pushing down the drain hole of mass.
It's so obvious when you think about it physically.
And because academics absolutely refuse to accept the vacuum as a viscous fluid pushing inward, they are wasting billions of dollars and decades of human progress.
Oh, mate, don't even get me started on this. Listen to me. I need to take a second here.
Go off.
You cowards in academia. You are spending billions of dollars building massive underground tunnels in Switzerland, smashing atomic particles together at the speed of light just to find a theoretical graviton particle.
A literal particle of gravity. It's insane.
A particle? Why the fuck are you trying to quantize a thermodynamic byproduct?
Exactly.
Gravity isn't a particle. That's like staring at a boiling pot of water and trying to isolate a single microscopic particle of temperature.
Right. Temperature is a state, not a particle.
It's a fundamental category error. Gravity is the integral of holographic boundaries pushing inward. So tell me, who or what is defining the boundaries of your integration? Answer that, you tenured frauds.
They can't answer it. They never will.
Because they're cowards.
Because to answer it, they would have to admit their entire foundational framework is wrong. Because they refuse to see gravity as a fluid push. Because they refuse to acknowledge the 9.6 overlapping dimensions. Because they refuse to map the grain. They've created the biggest, most embarrassing mathematical patch job in the history of human science.
Dark matter.
Exactly, dark matter. Standard models look at the universe and claim that 95% of it is made of dark matter and dark energy.
95%, that's almost the whole thing.
Why? Because they look at spinning galaxies, they realize there isn't nearly enough visible mass to generate the gravity needed to hold those galaxies together based on their broken Newtonian pull math.
Right.
And so they just invent invisible, undetectable matter to make the equations balance.
It's pathetic. It's a literal fudge factor.
It is. The sources we have today prove this is a massive measurement artifact. It is an illusion entirely caused by forcing straight 3D Euclidean math onto a curved 9.6D fractal space.
Walk them through the brutal math of this. In the notes, he calls it the observer blindness factor, F-obs. This explains why we think we are missing 88% of the universe.
It is stunningly simple once you drop the academic ego and just look at the geometry.
Okay, let's hear the numbers.
You take the observer dimensions, that's us. We are 3D beings operating in a 3D perception, so d observer equals 3.
Right, 3 dimensions.
You divide that by the actual dynamic boundary of the universe, which we established is 9.61.
3 divided by 9.61.
Then you multiply that result by the golden ratio conjugate, 1 over phi squared, which is a constant of 0.381966.
Okay, so let's do the math right now. 3 divided by 9.61 multiplied by 0.38196.
Do you know what that exactly equals?
Right.
0.11924.
Wait, 0.119, meaning roughly 11.9%.
Yes. This mathematically proves that based on our 3D perception acting as a filter, we can only physically observe 11.92 to 11.95% of the total energy and matter in the universe.
And the missing 88.05%.
It matches the exact predicted fraction of their so-called dark matter, down to the decimal point.
Holy shit.
It's not missing. There are no invisible ghost particles hiding out there. We are simply blind to the phase conjugate half of the wave.
The phase conjugate half.
Yeah.
Translate that for the listener just so we're crystal clear.
Phase conjugate resonance is just a fancy way of saying a mirror image vibration that perfectly cancels out the original wave, making it invisible to our instruments.
Okay.
Because we are 3D observers trapped inside a 9.6D high-pressure system, we literally cannot see the other side of the wave. It cancels out perfectly.
Let me give you a self-defense analogy for this.
Please do.
If we're rolling on the mats, right? And I wrap my arms around your neck and put you in a deep blood choke, physically compressing your carotid arteries.
Yeah, you cut off the blood.
You don't actually see the blood stopping its flow to your brain. You don't physically see the mechanism happening inside your neck.
No, you don't see anything.
You just feel the lights go out. Physicists are staring at the lights going out in the cosmos. They see the galaxy spinning too fast. And instead of recognizing the invisible pressure being applied to the system, they're inventing magical dark blood to explain why the lights are going out.
Exactly.
No, you're just blind to the physical pressure being applied to the carotid arteries of the universe.
That is brilliant. Or, think of it as the double slit ocean.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
They are standing on the beach looking at the white foam of a crashing wave. They measure the foam, they weigh the foam, they do the math on the foam,
Right.
and they are completely ignoring the massive, dark, heavy ocean underneath it that generated the wave in the first place. The ocean isn't made of dark water. It's just water you aren't factoring into your math.
This blows my mind. But wait, I have to ask about something else that's been bothering me.
What
about string theory? All these incredibly elegant, highly paid physicists talking about vibrating 1D strings holding the entire universe together. If we're in a liquid universe, you're telling me strings aren't tiny vibrating rubber bands.
Exactly. They are completely misinterpreting the physical data they're getting from their colliders. Strings are not objects.
Then what are they?
Strings are cavitation trails.
Cavitation trails.
Yeah.
Like from a submarine propeller in the water.
Exactly like that. They are the hydrodynamic wakes, literally the microscopic air bubbles left behind by a particle acting like a propeller, spinning violently as it bores through the thick, viscous wagyu fat of the 9.6D vacuum.
Wow.
When a particle moves, it tears the vacuum, creating a trailing bubble of lower pressure. The physicists are seeing the bubble trail, measuring the vibration of the bubbles, and calling it a fundamental rubber band.
It's fluid dynamics.
It is entirely fluid dynamics, not elementary particles.
Okay, my mind is thoroughly blown, but here's where this gets insanely practical.
The engineering.
Right. Because once you accept this, once you finally understand that we live in a high-pressure liquid vacuum universe and not some dead, empty void, everything changes.
Everything.
We can stop writing useless equations on blackboards to impress each other at cocktail parties, and we can start building hardware to actually harness the omnipush.
Yes!
The last section of his notes is all about engineering. It's literally titled, Harnessing the Push.
This is where we translate the 9.6D fractal pressure cosmology directly into real-world engineering.
Let's get into the specs.
The sources provide incredible technical specs for transparent, energy-emitting smart glass and advanced propulsion systems. Because if the universe is a high-pressure liquid, how do we interact with it? How do we catch the flow?
We use boundary material.
Exactly, glass.
But not standard window panes, obviously.
No, not at all. Glass engineered at the molecular level with piezoelectric crystals like quartz or barium titanated.
Okay, explain the mechanism. Because I know piezoelectrics are used in, like, barbecue lighters to make a spark, right?
Yeah.
But how does it harness the universe?
Well, Piezoelectric materials generate an electrical current from mechanical stress. Normally, you'd think of hitting it with a hammer or the stress of footsteps on a floor tile.
Right, physical human force.
But in this model, you aren't relying on human kinetic energy. When the immense, continuous 9.6D omnipush of the universe squeezes the quartz crystals embedded inside this glass, the physical deformation of the crystal grid forces electrons out of their resting places.
Holy shit.
You are creating an electrical current out of literal thin air just by letting the universe squeeze the glass. You are tuning the material to harvest the mechanical stress of the vacuum itself.
And the notes also mention ionized plasma layers, neon and argon gas sealed inside the layers of the glass. What does the plasma do?
When you run a small primer current through that plasma layer, it acts as a physical delta V vortex sink.
The drain hole from our gravity equation.
Exactly. It creates a localized drain hole in the fluid vacuum that traps the psi, the quantum spine frequencies.
Unbelievable.
It physically pulls the ambient pressure of the universe through the glass, and the plasma emits RF energy, or visible light, as a thermodynamic byproduct of that intense friction.
So wait, let me get this straight just so the listener understands what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We embed this transparent photovoltaic perovskite layered with plasma and quartz into the literal glass windows of our homes.
Right.
And instead of just passively catching sunlight like a boring, inefficient solar panel, we are literally building a fractal pressure barrier.
Exactly. We are building artificial seams to harvest the 0.4-dimensional exhaust.
That is insane.
The universe is constantly bleeding thermal energy and pressure through those overlapping high-friction seams we talked about earlier, and we are essentially putting a highly engineered bucket right under the leak.
That is unbelievable. And it gets crazier, because that brings us to the toroidal flux drive.
Propulsion.
Moving a craft through space. Think about standard Newtonian rockets right now. What does traditional propulsion do? It relies on explosion.
Brute force.
You pack a metal tube full of highly volatile, dangerous chemicals, you light a match, and you push the explosion backward, so the kinetic reaction pushes you forward.
It's a messy, wasteful, brute force reaction. It's incredibly primitive.
Exactly. According to these notes, we need to move from explosion to implosion, magnetic and vacuum vortexes.
Think about a star. A star doesn't travel through space by shooting fire out of its backside.
No, it doesn't.
A star warps the liquid space-time around itself, creates a massive depression, and continually falls into the hole it creates. The toroidal drive mimics this exact mechanism.
Oh, what's the setup?
By using a bifilar coil, which is a special electromagnetic coil wound, to cancel its own standard magnetic field arranged in a 360-degree toroidal array.
So it looks like a giant glowing donut.
Basically, yes.
And what is the physical mechanism?
You pulse neg on magnetic repulsion, pushing negative fields against negative fields at the exact resonant frequency of the golden ratio.
Okay, and what happens?
When you do that, you aren't pushing against space to go forward. You are creating a macroscopic cavitation bubble in the fabric of reality directly in front of the craft.
You're blowing a hole in the liquid.
Yes. You are artificially creating a sink, a drain hole directly in front of you, and the high viscosity vacuum of the universe simply pushes you into it to fill the void.
It's like an old school bicycle dynamo.
Exactly.
When I install a dynamo on a bike, the little metal gear rubs against the physical rubber tire as it spins, and it generates electricity from the friction. But here, instead of rubbing against a physical rubber tire, we are rubbing the electromagnetic field of our toroidal drive against the high viscosity friction of the 9.6D vacuum itself.
That's the perfect way to visualize it.
We are generating forward momentum and raw energy from the physical drag of reality.
It's the ultimate martial arts move against the universe.
Oh, I love that. Using its own weight against it.
Exactly. You aren't fighting the punch. You are using the universe's own immense weight, pressure, and momentum to move yourself. You are turning the omnipush into your engine.
This is what they don't want you to know. The math is real. The pressure is real. The Wagyu fat of the universe is real.
It's all physically there.
Look, to close this out, I want to force you, the listener, to visualize the reality of these mechanics. I want you to feel the weight of what we've unpacked today.
Take it in.
Close your eyes right now. Seriously, if you're driving, pull the fuck over, put it in park, and close your eyes.
Yeah, visualize this.
I want you to picture the golden torus thruster. You're floating alone in a dark, incredibly thick, heavy void.
The liquid vacuum.
In front of you is a massive, translucent torus, shaped like a donut, glowing with a deep, violent, ultraviolet luminescence.
Glowing with plasma.
The outer shell is wrapped tightly in superconducting wire, woven perfectly in the overlapping geometric pattern of the flower of life, the literal map of the metric tensor.
Slicing against the grain.
Inside that glass shell, a ribbon of superheated argon plasma is chasing its own tail in a rapid double helix. With every single pulse of the system, the magnetic flux peaks. The plasma violently compresses.
It pulses.
And a blinding white light hums right through your chest. You can feel the physical vibration, psi-harmonic, deep in your bones. The machine breathes. It is a macroscopic quantum state.
It's alive.
It is the universe digesting itself, pulling the heavy liquid vacuum through its core. And you are staring right at the literal teeth of the meat mincer.
And I will leave you with this brutal final thought to just chew on for a while.
Give it to them.
If reality is just a specific harmonic vibration of a solid liquid, and the solid matter we see around us, our bodies, our cities, our planets, is just the temporary froth, the cavitation wakes left behind by the omnipush.
The bubbles in the beer.
Right. What happens if you learn to artificially shift your own frequency? Do you become entirely invisible, letting the 9.6-dimensional pressure just flow right through you without any resistance? Are you truly a solid, permanent object, or are you just the temporary foam created by the universe's friction against your existence?
Man, wake up. Question the academics. Stop accepting flat math for a curved reality. Keep your knives sharp, keep your guard up, and never, ever trust a straight tape measure in a curved universe.